Welcome to Lift Your Story podcast with guest Nicole, Bitar, optimization coach and Kundalini Yoga teacher. Hi everyone, I am Lorianne. I am that gal from Milton, Ontario, Canada, and I am with.
I am that guy. I am Roy Miller from Dallas, Texas. Welcome to our Lift Your Story podcast.
In this episode, we welcome Nicole, Bitar, and she's an optimization coach and Kundalini Yoga teacher. I hope I said that right, but you can correct me if I didn't.
You did. You said it correctly. Good
Beautiful.
job.
Thank you.
So, Kara, you were an attorney at one time in corporate litigation, which I would think that would be pretty demanding and stressful.
Yes, it was very demanding and stressful.
So, is that why you chose to leave?
Not actually. No. I had basically planned my whole life to be an attorney. I wanted to be an attorney when I was in middle school. I'd walk around with Harvard law sweatshirts on. And so I planned and prepared my whole life to be an attorney. And when I actually became an attorney, I think it was like my dream kind of thing to do this. And I thought once I became an attorney, even though it was really hard getting there and really stressful getting there, I thought I would feel different. I thought my life would be different. I thought I would feel different. I thought I would be I've made it now. I feel worthy and valuable and I'm happy and I'm fulfilled. And, I had the job I wanted. I worked at one of the largest law firms in the Southeast. I had a beautiful house and I had these beautiful clothes and I could go on trips and all the things that I thought I wanted. But even though I had all of that, I would say deeply unhappy. And I didn't know why. I wasn't blaming, a little bit blaming the job for it, but not entirely, because I really liked the people I worked with. And I felt I have everything I wanted. And if you look at my life on paper, if you look at my resume, you would say that's so impressive. You have everything you want. And yet I was so unhappy and I didn't know why. And the interesting thing was too, when I was at work, I would, in the morning, I'd see my colleagues and be like, hey, how are you? And they would say things like, living the dream, this sarcastic kind of, And the thing was I wanted the dream. I wanted that. And I thought that that's what I had worked so hard for. And again, I'm not blaming the job. So anyway, I was deeply unhappy. I didn't entirely know why. The job, yes, it was very high stress. We worked a lot. But again, part of me thought that might have been the reason I was unhappy, but part of me didn't. And so eventually I practiced for about 6 years. And after that, I left the job. And it was the hardest thing I've ever done. It was this surreal experience when I left. I couldn't believe I was actually doing this. It just seemed insane. I'd worked so hard to get here. And not only that, I had at that point in time the respect of my colleagues. I had kind of earned okay, what it takes to become a good attorney. What does it take to be respected in the workplace? And so, yeah, I left. And of course, one of the things that happens is in my job, yes, it is very high stress. So what people do is when they leave, they go to another law job that is potentially less stressful. And the firm that I worked for actually helps people get those jobs. It was a really supportive firm. And it was well, we'll help you get another job. And I was just nope, I'm just going to leave. I need to figure things out because I really felt this job, if you just put me in another job, it'll be different faces, different places, but I'm going to feel the same. My life isn't going to feel different to me. And so ultimately why I left that job was not because it was super high stress, which it was, but it was really because I had this deep sense of unhappiness that I needed answers to that. I needed to understand that and why that existed. And I felt just moving to another job wasn't going to give me that answer. And at the same time, I tried staying in that job and getting the answers that I wanted. And I did not succeed at that. So part of me did feel I have to leave to get these answers that I'm looking for.
It's quite the
You
step.
know, I think a lot of people suffer from that same thing. They work so hard to get to their achievements they're trying to get to, and once they get there, it's kind of like, this is it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I did all that to get here, like you said, and you realize you're not happy.
Yeah.
It's not what you expected or wanted it to be once you get there, and it's kind of like, be careful what you wish for. You may get it, but but what you got may not be what you want.
Yeah, exactly. It is. It's really disheartening. I would say it's kind of devastating in a way. But it's like every time along the way, obviously it was hard to get to that point, and I kept saying, though, once I get there, right? Once I get there, then I'll feel different. Once I make it, then I'll feel valuable, then I'll feel worthy, then I'll feel happy, all the things. And then, to get there and then be like, I don't feel any different. Like I feel maybe a little bit different, like it gave me maybe like a little boost of like, well, I actually did it. But it was like, that was still me, and I was still there. And these things that were happening outside of me weren't the thing that was, going to make me happy or that made me happy. And so, yeah, it can be really disheartening. And for me, I would say it was just incredibly, incredibly difficult because, and I know I'm not the only person like this. I know I'm not the only person who works and plans their whole life for something, and then they get it, and it's just like, what is this? Obviously, I've gone on a journey since then to figure these things out more, to understand, like, why I was feeling the way I was feeling. But it is incredibly difficult a situation to be in,
It's
and very
interesting.
disheartening.
It's interesting you were talking that, you have your dogs, I have my dogs, but when you said that you got that little boost, it's almost like when you give your dog a treat and they're really happy for a second, and they're staring back at you and saying, I want more, but there's never enough. And and that reward is so, it doesn't last. And what you were looking for was a longer lasting feeling of feeling right about yourself. So
Yeah,
that's very interesting.
absolutely. And when I got into the job, at first I had the moment where I was like, well, maybe when I make partner, then I'll, you have that moment, like, when I hit the next thing, then I'll feel like, then it'll happen. But then, you do get to the point where you're like, listen, I've done that enough. Like, I've done that enough times. It's like, okay, so first I did this thing in college, graduated summa cum laude and published. And, then I got into Duke, and then I published there. And then, you just keep, and then you start to realize, like, this will keep going. Like, this isn't going to end. This isn't going to give me what it is I really want.
It's interesting you mentioned that comment about living the dream. There are so many people in jobs, and that's their attitude. Oh yeah, I'm really living the dream now, and they can't, for maybe financial reasons or whatever, or fear, won't leave that behind to go find something that they'll be happy at.
Absolutely. And to me, this is this concept of like, and I was, one of my colleagues that I was talking to, I was just like, I'm like, do you really love this? Are you really passionate about what you're doing? And again, I am not criticizing the profession of being an attorney. I met attorneys who were truly, some of my colleagues were living the dream, because that was like maybe like the thing for them, right? But one of my colleagues, I was just like, are you energized? Like, and like, when you wake up, are you passionate? Does this, like, do you feel energized, like, by life, And the response was no, but that's just what life is. You know what I mean? Like, we have it good. We make a lot of money. We have this like prestigious job. And like, I'm not like excited about my life. I can't wait till I can take a break, but like, that's just what life is. And I just think, I just like couldn't accept that. It was like, that just like sucked everything out of me. Like, no, I just can't believe that. I just can't believe like that's what life is. And so that's what, it was like those things that I was like, I'm going to leave this job. I have to find out. I have to know for myself, like, is there more to life? than that. Like, we're just kind of like, I don't know, kind of surviving, kind of thriving because we make a lot of money, but not really, like, I wanted to wake up in the morning and be like, I'm so excited for my day. I wanted to feel like what I was doing, it like energized me. I wanted to, like, I mean, I feel so different now, but it's like, I know what I wanted then, really. It was like, I wanted to like revel in the magnificence of this experience and of myself. And that was something I thought was basically probably like, part of me knew it could be, but part of me was like, couldn't, it's like, I just had to find out.
So when you went on that journey from attorney to where you are now, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So after I left my job, interestingly enough, it was like, I knew my job wasn't the problem, kind of, but part of me kind of thought it was. And I thought, give me 2 weeks, give me 2 weeks away from this job and I'll figure something out. Like, I'll figure things out. And wow, that is not what happened. I mean, that is totally not what happened. I left that job, and after I left, it was like I realized what bad shape my body was in, like what bad shape my health was in, because I realized I had basically been operating on adrenaline for years. And it was that adrenaline that was moving me forward. It wasn't my own energy. And so I just felt completely exhausted. My body was like, I ached everywhere. And in addition to that, I think the thing that maybe I wasn't ready for that really hit me hard was, even though I had accomplished all these things and I had this great resume, you would think that I could look at that and say, well, I've done these things, I feel good about myself. Even though I'm not doing them now, I know that I can do them. And what ended up happening for me was I felt completely and utterly worthless. I mean, it was like, when that job went away, I felt like I was nothing. And I just realized, like, my value and worth was so tied up in that job. It was so tied up in these things on this resume. It was so tied up in these places I went to school and whatever, what the things I accomplished at those places. And when those were gone, oh my gosh, it was just like, I just hit the floor. Like, I'm worthless. I don't have any like value. And so that was incredibly difficult. And so it was like, one, I realized my body is in really bad shape. Two, mentally, I felt just terrible. And then the other thing that really bothered me was I just thought, what is it that do I actually like anything really? Do I actually have like a passion in life? Because I just always done everything I was supposed to do or I should do. And so I had all of these things I was dealing with. And so 2 weeks clearly was not gonna, 2 weeks, like, that was not gonna do anything for me. And so what I did was I basically just decided I'm going to dedicate all of my time and everything I have to really finding answers, to really digging in and finding answers. Why do I feel so bad? What can I do to bring my body back into, a state of health? And so what I did was I just started like reading and researching. I started seeing all sorts of different healers and practitioners. I took a number of different classes. I got certified in a number of different modalities. Like, I became a Reiki master. I became a certified theta healing practitioner. I got certified in another modality. And so I was doing all of that. And that was my full-time job. Like, that was what I did all the time. And I was trying to do all these different things to bring my body into a state of health, like cleanses and saunas and all the things, like floats and different, light therapies. And, and I really, with each thing, I really gave it a really good try. I didn't just jump from one thing to the other. I really kind of dove in, tried to figure out what was going on with each thing I was doing. Was it working? Was it effective? And after about 1.5 years, I would say I felt worse than I did when I was working in my job.
Wow.
Shockingly. Yeah. My health wasn't better. my mental state, it was like the longer it went on without me doing something, it was like the harder it got on me mentally. And so, yeah, I would say I was in a worse state. And it was really, I'd say one of the darkest times in my life, because I was like, what I'm looking for doesn't exist. Like, it doesn't exist. Like, I didn't have it great when I was in my job, but I was better off there than I am now. And like, it wasn't ideal, but that's just what life is. You have to take the good with the bad or whatever. And so I was in a really dark place, and I was still, though, very open to trying new things. And it was almost like I couldn't stop trying new things, because part of me, I think, knew, like, no, there's an answer, find it. And so one day I turned on a Kundalini Yoga class. It was just on YouTube, and I had done yoga for years, so very familiar with yoga. I had not done Kundalini Yoga. So I turned on this class, and I took the class. And after that class, I felt different. I felt good. And so I kept taking more classes. And the more classes I took, the better I felt. I started to feel energized. My body stopped aching. And more than that, I started to feel good about myself. I started to feel like this innate internal worthiness that comes from just me being me, not from something that I'm doing outside of myself. And so, given these changes that were happening in me, I had to know more about Kundalini Yoga. So I found a teacher certification program that actually was taught by a Duke professor, which was really cool for me, because it's like, now I'm back at Duke, kind of, in a different way. And so I took that certification, not to teach it, just I need to know more about this thing that's changing my life. And so after I took that program, the more I kind of delved into that, the more I understood it, the more I saw why it was changing my life. And the more I realized, like, not only can this help change my life, it can help change other people's lives. And so it wasn't until after that, like, I finished the program, and then I decided that I wanted to start teaching Kundalini Yoga, just to share it with other people so that they could benefit from it. And I just wish, like, oh, I wish I would have known about this when I was working. Like, I wish I would have known about this practice, quite frankly, years ago, because it made such a difference in my life. And then after I started to do Kundalini Yoga, and my mind became clearer, and it was like I started to feel inspired. I started to feel creative. I started to feel passionate about life. The other thing that happened was I started to see this kind of journey that I had been on, and I started to see, why did certain things work and why didn't certain things work? And then I started to, as these things started to become clear, I started to make more changes in my life, outside of doing Kundalini Yoga. I started to kind of experiment and make more changes in my life. And those then led me to creating the programs that I created.
That
Wow.
is very
What a
interesting.
journey.
No kidding. So that's why now you're an optimization coach. So you have programs that go along with that coaching programs that you have.
Exactly. I wrote programs. So these are programs that I created based upon my own experiences, all of the trainings that I've been through, Kundalini Yoga practice, pulling on kind of, some of them pull on yogic traditions. But yeah, basically I'm kind of, quite frankly, I'm surprised myself that these things kind of came to me, and kind of, it was like, oh, now I see what I was doing, and I see that if I'd have done this, then this would happen. And so, I could have gone back to practice law. I wasn't that far removed from it. The reason that I'm not is because I feel like I found these things that work. I found these things that bring results, and I found these things that can make people's lives dramatically different. Not that they don't have to leave their jobs for these things to work. They don't have to do what I did. Like, these things will meet them where they are and benefit them. And so now I would say my mission in life really is sharing these things with other people, because we can have vibrant and sustained health. Like, we can be in states where we're excited about life, where we feel energized by life, where we are in love with ourselves, where we're not doing things from places of fear and unworthiness and lack of value. And my ultimate position, the ultimate conclusion that I came to is that when we understand who we are and how we function, that's how we then have these experiences. And what I'm seeing is that we have a lot of confusion about who we really are and how we really function. And once we really understand ourselves, like that's when we get to have these, like really these experiences and these lives that I would say people are generally wanting. And so really what I'm doing is, I feel like it's almost like giving people the education that maybe they never had, that I would say should have. The education, about themselves, how they function, how their thoughts function, all these things. And so if we have these, how our bodies function, like for instance, in Kundalini Yoga, the power of using our breath, things like this. So that's what I have dedicated myself to now.
So for us that aren't familiar with yoga, what is the difference of Kundalini yoga to, I guess, what other types of yoga?
Yeah, so a lot of what you see in a lot of yoga studios is hatha. It's like a form of hatha yoga. So hatha yoga is very posture focused. So you'll see them, stretching a lot, moving a lot. And what Kundalini yoga is it does use postures and poses. The postures and poses used in Kundalini yoga, they do look in many instances quite different from what you'd see in hatha yoga. But Kundalini Yoga also uses sound. So it uses mantra. It uses a lot of different types of breathing. It uses hand positions. It uses eye positions. It uses meditation. It uses relaxation. And it uses all of these things to create a result. So if you looked at a Kundalini Yoga class, it is going to look quite different from a class that you'd kind of maybe be used to seeing. And what Kundalini Yoga does is it is not just working your physical body. It is certainly working the physical body. And not only is it working the physical body, but it's working on things that a lot of people might not realize really benefit from being worked on, like the nervous system and the endocrine system. It's really working on those. But it's also working a person mentally. So it's working the mind. So it's helping bring clarity to the mind. It's helping bring conscious control of thoughts to the mind. It's helping a person relate to their mind. It's also working a person from an emotional level. So it helps you deal with emotions. There are a number of practices in Kundalini Yoga that deal with emotions. Like we do have a tendency to suppress our emotions. Kundalini Yoga will actually help you detox those emotions, and it will help you deal with those emotions and the current emotions that you're having. And the other thing that Kundalini Yoga does is it works you from an energetic level. So, if we look back at some of these ancient traditions, there's like the chakra system, that energy system in the body. If we look at things like Reiki, there's a lot of different modalities that look at a person from an energetic kind of perspective. And so Kundalini Yoga also does that, because in the yogic tradition, they did have an energy system for the body. And so Kundalini Yoga is also working that. So it's doing all of these things at once. So I would say what Kundalini Yoga is doing is it's giving you a lot of bang for the buck. And the thing about these things is they're related, right? So, if you're kind of walking around with all these suppressed emotions, that's going to be affecting you mentally, emotionally, and physically. Those emotions, they can actually get stuck in the body and in the cells. And so it's working the entire being. And so my position is I didn't realize at the time when I was doing it, what it was doing, but I knew I felt different. And I kept feeling better and better the more I did it. And then when I got trained in it, it made sense to me. Oh, this is why it's having such an impact. It's doing all of this stuff at one time.
Wow. Well, how can our listeners reach out to you?
So I have a website. It's www.karanicolebitar.com. And that's the best way to reach out to me. You've got all my information on there. And I offer complimentary discovery calls so people can talk to me. They can talk to me about Kundalini Yoga. They can talk to me about the programs that I offer and see how those will benefit them.
Perfect. And let me just, because we have listeners, I know that we put them in the notes, but for those who tend to pass over the notes, it's Kara is Kara, Nicole, Nicole, and Bitar, Bitar.com. Perfect. Really appreciate you being here. Honest to goodness, it was really interesting. I've never heard of that yoga, and it's actually quite, I need to look into it.
Yeah, if you're interested, please reach out to me, let me know. So everything I do is remote. So I live stream my classes. And so I have people from, so I'm in North Carolina, but I have people in the class who are from the West Coast. I have some people who are from like northern, like the northern East Coast. So, and
Canada?
Hmm?
In Canada?
I don't know if I have anyone from Canada yet, but hey, I'd love to have someone from Canada. But the reason I live stream partly too is because I also, if you join my classes, you also get the recordings to the class. And that's really important to me to do that because when I was working, I did not have time to attend live classes. I didn't. I practiced yoga when I was working. I did it at 4 a.m. That's the only time I had time.
Yeah.
So it was really important to me with everything that I did that it be super accessible to people, to everybody. And especially like if people are busy, if they're working, this is something that's accessible to them. So I have people who attend my live classes, which I love because I love talking to them and having that community. But I do have people who like that's just not feasible for them. And so they just do the recordings, but I'm always available to them if they have questions so we can talk about it because it's somewhat of an intense practice because it's doing so much. So I really want people to have support while they're doing it. I don't want them really just off kind of doing it. I was just off doing it by myself because I was doing it on YouTube, but I really want to support the people who are in my class. So because there's a lot happening with the practice. So
It's beautiful.
Cool.
Thanks again for your story and sharing that. It's amazing what you've done, and glad that you found your way to. Not everybody gets to do that, so it's wonderful when you do find your passion and you find yourself. So thank you so much for sharing your story.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for taking the time to put out this podcast. I've enjoyed listening to other people's stories, and it's really inspiring.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
very much. It was a real pleasure to meet you.
You as
Absolutely.
well.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Be sure to visit us at lifterstory.com.